This government meeting is brought to you by Eastworks and our local cable subscribers.
With that, I will call to order this meeting of the Easthampton Planning Board for Tuesday, January 23rd, 2024. We are all of us in person except for Ken, who is remote, and we are recording the meeting. First item on the agenda, public speak. Anybody have anything to speak about that is not on the agenda tonight? Looking good. All right. Planning Board minutes.
Motion to approve the minutes from November 28th, 2024.
Second. All right, voting to approve November 28th. All those in favor?
Aye.
Abstain, because I was absent.
Motion to approve the minutes from December 19th, 2023.
Second. Voting to approve. All those in favor?
Aye.
And my only comment on January 29th, I think we should note that we were remote.
Ninth.
Does that mean? Yeah. Did I say 29th? Okay. We should note that it was remote, and because of that, we should also just note that all the votes were roll call. We'll do other than that.
Motion to approve the minutes from January 9th with the aforementioned modification.
Second. All those in favor?
Aye.
All right, and with that, I will leave.
We'll see you later tonight, Jesse. Thank you. Anyone who wants to scrunch in, feel free. We can get more of you in here. This chair is free.
So I got to.
Got two items.
Grab two of those chairs just for extra.
Yeah.
Jesse?
Yeah, anyway.
Your jacket?
I kind of come back for it. I don't know. 1 second, please. Sorry. All right, so we have two items on the agenda tonight. Jesse can recuse himself, as we know, for the first, and we'll be back for the second.
Oh, I'm sorry. You may be able to get one more.
The first item on the agenda tonight is the 282 Loudville Road and continuation. I know that we've got a new set of plans coming in. Just to let everyone know the plans tonight, intent is to ask the applicant to present the new plans formally to us and whatever modifications or presentation you'd like to make. The board has any questions during or after that, we can ask them. At that point, I'm going to open it up to the public. Given that we have two meetings tonight, and it doesn't look like we have too many people, but I'm going to start by trying to limit that to 4 minutes. And then after that, I plan on going through as a board any potential conditions or modifications. And hopefully we'll get to a point where we can request a draft be created for our next meeting. That's my overall plan, but we'll see how it goes. I'd like to start now with the applicant. With your presentation, please.
Good evening, John Furman, office manager from VHB in Springfield, Craig Othier and Joe Kelly, the applicants, and we're here for the Pineview Estates project. This is our third planning board meeting. You should have the documents in front of you. We submitted updated items on January 15th. I'm going to be pretty much talking to just the cover letter that we submitted and the plan set, which is on the board behind us. So we, since the last meeting, we had talked about a new concept for the development where we were taking all of the single buildings and not all of them, some of them, and then sliding them together to kind of create a multifamily. So what we ended up doing on the plan set, and I'll go through those a little bit later so we can kind of point out the discussion, is the concept that we prepared is that we actually turned it into a formal a set of plans, which is what we submitted. And the cover letter is broken into 2 sections. The first was the only comments that we had to address were ones from the engineer, city engineer, dated January 7th. And then the second part of the letter is basically kind of going through the plans, identifying what the changes were. So on the first part, I paraphrased the city's engineer's comments. They're not word for word, but in general, the first comment he had basically asked about the downspout. We had a detail on our plans for the downspout connection.
I think we covered that as well.
We did?
That was one of the questions I had during the first meeting.
Okay.
So it was nice to see the same
Yeah,
response and the
right.
engineer had the same question.
Yeah. So just to confirm is that the house is planned to have just gutters. If a potential owner wants to connect the roof up to it, they can just run piping up to it. But the driveways all do slope to the roadway. Roadway water is captured and goes into the basin. So that's the answer. The second question was he was talking about the the actual field testing. He was supporting of doing that. The DP requires that we have testing in the basins. When we did the original testing, we based onto a concept that we had. As we got into design, things moved, so the basins ended up being in a different spot than the test pit, so we just went out and grabbed 2 more. We did get different results on the infiltration testing, which I have in the cover letter here. So originally we got 85, 52, and 69 feet per day of infiltration. On the 2 that we got, which were in the basins, we ended up getting 36 and 60. So one was less and one was more. So what I included in there, and I didn't bother to give multiple copies of that, the stormwater model, I showed it to Dylan. It's a bunch of numbers, so unless you're an engineer, there's absolutely no way you're gonna make any heads or tails out of it. But what I did is I took the models that we had and I substituted the appropriate infiltration rate in for each of those basins. So the net impact of it is that basin 1 has no change because all the water flows into basin 1. It can only reach a certain elevation, then it spills over and goes into the second. So basin 1's going to operate the same way no matter what the infiltration rate is. The result is a little bit more water goes into basin 2. And after the end of the calculations, this showed that basin 2, the 100-year water elevation in basin 2 went up by 0.14 feet, which is a little less than 2 inches. And even at that, we still had over 2 feet of freeboard between the 100-year and the spillover on the basin. So in effect, there's no change because of that, but everything is right with what we got. We confirmed it with our testing and there's no issues with anything. There's a number of questions that he had, which basically asked, like, you know, if the stormwater basins are to be used during construction for controlled stormwater, the designer has to do a few things, and then a few other comments, which I'll mention later on, is doing additional testing. The end result is, which I've said at previous meetings, that the basins are not intended to be used during construction. You get the sediment in there, it kind of clogs it up, and they just don't function the same way. And Craig has agreed that the basins will be constructed, they'll be stabilized, but they'll be offline until the roadway is installed, the paving. That reduces the amount of sediment that goes into it, and then they can be used. And that's what our response says. I recommend the planning include a requirement for basin inspection to confirm any accumulated fines have been removed prior to the return of stormwater bond and final acceptance. That's something after the basin has been used, the bond runs for a certain amount of time. That's just showing that the maintenance is being performed, and we have no problem with that one. That's a standard comment. Again, if either of the basins are to be used during construction, they're not. So I'll just skip that one because we added a note on the plan that says not to use the basins for stormwater control. He recommended reducing the pavement width to 20 or 22 feet from the 24. He's citing as a private driveway. It doesn't need to be that wide, and that'll reduce the amount of stormwater. We discussed it as a team, and they decided to leave it at 24. It makes for a better maneuverability. It helps with the emergency vehicle access through there, so no changes on that either. All right, and then plan revisions. So maybe we'll kind of run through these as we go through the plans, kind of do the same thing twice. So this is the plan. So this is the overall plan, and it's very similar to the concept plan that we submitted. You can see as you're driving down the roadway on the left side, there are still 5 units there, but 2 of them have been slid together. And so we've taken advantage of the 20 feet that was in between both of those units and slid everything closer together so that there's more buffer on either side. The units to the right have not changed. They have been maintained as they are. You get to the cul-de-sac and we basically did the same thing, resulting in an additional 40 feet. So we pulled everything around the center of the cul-de-sac and increased the buffers on either side. So that is the premise of the entire plan set. And that's what the update is. On this sheet here in the bottom left corner, you can see we still have 2 types of units, type 1 and a type 2. So we basically say that under type 1, there are still 11, but we have 3 that are kind of single family design and 4 that are double family. And under type 2, we have 3 units, which are basically the same. So that's the premise of this. Can we just go to the next plan? Let's kind of rifle through these. This is just, as we start getting into these plans here, it starts to, do an enlargement so you can kind of see what's going on. One of the items here, which we'll actually see on the landscape plan that was updated, is on the bottom of the plan. You can see behind those units there's kind of an arc that wasn't there before. The landscape architect had suggested that we redo that area. It was all non-native invasives. We saw that on our walk. It's kind of viney and it's bittersweet and it's kind of killing the trees. So we had a note to clear that out and to save any of the larger trees, which are actually in the wooded area. And what we're doing there is we're creating a 3-foot plateau, 3-foot berm. And then you'll see on the landscaping plan that we're loaming and seeding that, and we're actually planting trees around it to create a buffer area. So that's what you can notice on this one. Could you go back to the overall plan, please? The overall, yeah. So go right there on the bottom. See in that bottom, right there. So we had talked about that eroded area and installing some sort of protection through there. When we met out there and walked through the site with Jeff and Cassie and Dylan, Cassie thought anything we did out there would be exempt from the Conservation Commission because it's just basically just installing a fence. What we showed on here is just a cable kind of strung between the slopes of the eroded area. So you really can't get around it if we're planning, and we know for it to be field located. We're calling out for a high visibility encasement on that cable. So if you have a small cable, put like a tubing that is a color so it stands out.
What height would that cable be at?
We don't have it specified, but we can still. It's more just of a warning type of thing, and then have signs on it that basically just say warning, so that it's alerting someone that on the other side there's some sort of danger. There was a concern that might be something for 4-wheelers that they may become decapitated, but it's set back. The path is here, and then this is set back in the woods right close to the erosion. So if you're getting decapitated on that, you're going over the embankment. So it's just, it's not, the intent is just to provide some sort of a warning thing.
What would the cable be made out of?
It could be steel, small little, doesn't have to be a thick logging cable. It could be something very small that you could throw it in. And we just call for it to be field located, something very simple, but just to alert somebody that there's something there.
Okay.
All right, so if we keep going forward, please, that would be great. The grading, no changes on any of these. I think we want to get all the way to the end where the landscaping is. I think that is the next. It should be towards the, try one of those. Section, keep going down. Yeah, keep going. That is the fire truck road that hasn't changed. So it should be one of the next ones. Okay, right here. Let's slide that over a little bit. So as a result of all the abutter meetings, we had kind of presented something very similar to this at the last meeting in the concept. So we made it part of the documents. So the buffers have all been increased as far as like the cutting. So 10-foot minimum. I think that one in the corner there is showing 34 feet, if I'm not mistaken. So they've increased quite a bit. There was a comment on this view here towards the back about the quality of the existing buffer and that a butter wanted it all taken down and replanted. Our response was that we prefer to have it because even though the bottom part of it is of poor quality, it has a nice canopy on top and that provides an upper shielding. So the trees that we're planting are intended to fill the gap. So you'd have a full barrier here. We did add a note here that she had a concern along the property line that the sticks from those trees would be touching your fence. So we just had a note within a couple feet, just break off the sticks and make sure nothing overhangs the property line. So that's generally very simple. You can see the arced area at the bottom, cleaning it all up, loaming and seeding it. All of these areas here are a mixture of or deciduous plantings, and we specify what is available at the nursery. So it's either pine, fir, or spruce. And we didn't want to say a mixture of them, one or the other, or that this is going to be pine, this is going to be spruce. Because if we say it's going to be spruce and we go down there, they don't have any, then we have to look for them. So it's going to be what we did is identify the species and the size, but what we end up there is what is actually available at the nursery. And that's the way the notes are all written on these here. On the bottom, we turn the corner, we run along that property line. So if we go to the next one, we pick up the edge, go down.
Next slider.
Yep, and then move over to there you go. So we kind of pick up the rest of it. The sizes do differ between the different sections, and the arrows you can see kind of point out to the limits of the sizes that we have planting. So as we get from the property to the corner and we go down towards the detention basin, those are a little bigger. In the detention basin area, we specify in plantings, but they're a little bit of a smaller size because there's really nothing there to shield. It's just a detention basin. We did add fencing. I think we mentioned last time, fencing all around all the basins with an access gate that's locked, so it protects people from going in. Okay, the only other item that we did change is the cul-de-sac, and we can probably see it right here. So originally, as we were coming down the roadway, we have bituminous berm curbing on either side of the roadway. When we get to the radius, it transitioned to a vertical granite curb around the outside and then a sloped granite edging on the inside. And in talking to maintenance people, we were told that the granite curbing would be a little bit of a problem from a snow plowing perspective. So what we did on this plan set is removed all the granite curbing from this area, and we've converted to a bituminous berm, Cape Cod berm, which I think we're all familiar with. It's 12 inches wide, it's 4 inches tall, and the plows kind of skid right over it. Doesn't really chew it up like a bituminous curb. Bituminous curb is 6 inches tall. When you hit that, it kind of busts it and gets rid of it. So that is a change that we did here. We also talked about the center of the cul-de-sac being planted with a pollinator. So we're showing a 10-foot grass strip around the perimeter of that. And then the inside, the landscaper will consult the city's pollinator action plan, get some species, and that'll be planted in accordance with that. And the last thing on the plan is we talked about the clearing line. So the clearing line that we have here now is a clearing line that's shown where these trees are. So we still have added a note that the line is to be put in by survey, and before any tree cutting occurs, the line will be walked. So if there is a tree that we could bump the line one way or the other and save what might be a signature tree or something, more than scrub, we'll do that as long as it doesn't impact the buildings and the design. It's not a danger to anyone. So, and if you go to the end of this, you'll see we've included the house plans for the building of the three types right through here. So each one has a floor plan and an exterior elevation. So we actually just appended them to our site plan set. The buildings will be very similar to what is in the Stepler project as far as the design and look at those. So.
Because we have an audience here and everyone looking at loving, yeah, you're doing exactly what I need you to do, Dylan. Just kind of scroll through it, make sure everyone gets the deal of it. Didn't mean to interrupt, please continue.
No, and that's really it. That's all we had. We were just handed some comments that kind of came in. One from the city engineer and a couple from the abutters group. The city engineer is just questioning the stormwater pollution prevention plan. I've mentioned that a few times in my previous presentations, and that's actually a construction document. It's required. The requirement for that is if you have a site that disturbs more than 1 acre of land, you're required under the EPA to file for a general permit for construction. And part of that filing is the preparation of a stormwater pollution prevention plan. And in 2023, the requirements for what is included in a SWIP were redone by the EPA and the Corps of Engineers, and they're very detailed. The SWIPs that I've seen, they're probably now a ream of paper. And what that is, it's a guidebook for the contractor to, it identifies all options available to him for stormwater management and erosion sediment control during a process. What we show in our plans is the start of a thing. So he's going to put in what we have on the plans and what the board approves. If during construction, there's a contour or a pile or something that directs water to one of the erosion control barriers, and it happens to be overwhelmed. There's a certain requirement that he has to follow in that SWIP. He has to correct it, he has to note it, he has to file the report in the SWIP. So it's a living document from when the construction starts to when it's closed. And there's inspection requirements. He does an inspection of the basins. You have to be approved by the Corps of Engineers to be an inspector now. You have to take their training course. Once he gets through it, he signs it, puts it in the book. So that has everything in it that he'll need. So that's, and the engineer was asking who's going to prepare that. It would be the contractor that's going to do it. And he recommended doing it, 60 days before construction start. That's probably about when you need to start because it's so complex now, but it doesn't need to get filed with the EPA until 14 days prior to construction, and it can only be filed electronically. And that's all I have. Happy to answer questions.
Start with the trust. I see you included the trust, which is essentially the HOA.
Yes.
I noted one thing I didn't see in there was anything about the, specifically the maintenance of the pump, the sewage pump or lift. I'm not sure how
I think these are draft documents.
it looked like it was.
Yeah, and I think they were just generally providing so that you kind of see the intent. Those need to kind of go through and be finalized in it, but it would have to be in there, yes.
At this point, I'd like to ask the board if they have any questions about the presentation or anything in general.
Yeah, it's just on your last point. So EPA, with your 1 acre disturbance, what's the disturbance again on the site?
It is a little over 3.5 acres, I believe.
Okay, and then Massachusetts has a SWIP requirement too for their MSGP, their construction stormwater permit.
Yeah,
For that, I think it's 2 acres, but I don't want to go on record with that. So you're gonna get that, correct? You're gonna go with
I have to,
MAPP?
I think that only applies if you have a resource area on your site that you're applying to. I'll have to look at
You
that.
might want to look at that. I've just,
I'll look into that.
so that would require you to have a SWIP and
Yep.
that permit in place. So we just may want to touch on that if,
Yeah. I'd have to say anything that Massachusetts requires is gonna be far less than what the feds require. The
It
SWIP
usually goes the other way, no? The federal, and then the state gets a little stricter, and then, that's my experience.
I've looked at
Environmental
a
regulations.
dozen of SWIPs. I've never seen a more comprehensive document. It's incredible.
Yeah.
So they really went around and did their way with it, so.
Okay.
Are you suggesting, I just want to be clear so we don't lose track of it, are you suggesting a condition? Is that?
Yeah, if required, that they have all the required state
Okay.
stormwater permits in place, and
I'll look into that. We've done projects. I wasn't aware that that was something that was required. I'll look into it.
yeah, there's,
Anything else?
Yeah, I got a question for you. We got that lady living next door, right?
Which one?
On the left-hand side, when you pull up to the property, I get the lady who lives in the back on the left-hand side.
Well, we wanted the fence.
Yeah, and, she's concerned about getting that buffer cut down.
Yes.
Why can't you cut that down?
Well, we want to keep the buffer so that we have it's tall. There's no understory, but the overstory, the upper story on it is actually quite thick. So we're going to have roof peaks and we're going to have that center unit as a story building. So we'd like to keep that upper canopy so that we get some shielding from that. And then down below, we put in the new plantings along the buffer to create a full shield.
Well, why couldn't it cut it down from her property to your trees? You're planting trees, that in between area. Why couldn't it cut that down for her?
Well, it's on our property, but we don't want to cut it down. We want to keep it because of the canopy.
If you got a canopy, what are you planting trees for?
There's,
I don't get it.
yeah, so there's,
he's saying that the tops are all good, and there's a space between ground surface and top that's barren. And he wrote it in the response to comments and talked about it in the presentation earlier, but his company's proposition is to fill that space by planting other things in there. And that's the response to not removing those trees. Did I capture that correctly?
you did. You're never going to be able to go purchase a 30-foot high tree. So we have 30-foot high trees. The bottom 8 feet of them are bare. So we're going to plant 8-footers along there. So you'll end up with a huge buffer.
Anything else? Ken, you have anything?
Yeah, I'm curious about the cable, the warning cable. Who maintains that? Who's gonna make sure that it's always up? And if there's signs on it, that the signs are gonna be maintained?
I guess it'd be the homeowners association, that's part of the property. Yeah,
The HOA?
yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Question about this document. Where did this come from, to relocate the hydrant? That was something that we haven't talked about yet.
Clip it.
Right, that was,
Yeah,
I don't know where that came from.
So I believe that came from the fire, chief,
Yeah.
fire inspector. So, he had called earlier, this week or earlier last week. And he'd asked me to send him a 2-scale plan because he wanted to review the fire hydrant locations. I haven't seen that yet.
Okay.
So he said he was gonna review it now that he had it to scale plan and see where he wanted the hydrants put. So that looks like he's just moving one of them.
Yeah, he's requesting to either relocate the hydrant from unit 15 to between units 12 and 13, or add a hydrant between units 12 and 13.
We relocated.
Proper access. Okay.
I see you've indicated it.
Yeah.
That's right there.
Yeah.
Oh, that's your note? I thought that was.
That's
it.
not our, no, that's
the
from,
fire department.
that's from the fire department, yeah.
Relocate or add.
I'm
So you'll
assuming
relocate.
that he must have emailed that at some point. That I don't think I've got it yet.
Okay.
And you will do that.
It's like,
Anything else? So with regard to the HOA, you know, Ken's point, regarding the cable, my point regarding the sewage lift. I'd like to, we're gonna go through some questions with the public next and maybe talk a little bit more as a board. But I think it's likely that we'll strive for a draft decision for our next meeting, at which point we'll end the public hearing and vote. I'd very much like to see presented at that meeting, these additions into your HOA to talk a little bit more about those maintenance components. We have a little bit of time, I think. We'll talk about how much time it may be, before our next meeting, probably February 6th, we'll talk about that. I'd like to see those modifications made in your HOA so that we have that at the point at which we vote. We have some confirmation that the HOA is going to be aware of these things and that they're not just going to be forgotten in this discussion. Okay. If no one else on the board has any questions, I'd like to open it up to the public. As always, I'll try to go back and forth, starting in the room and then to anyone online, back and forth. There's no podium here. I ask that you try and speak clearly. There is a camera in the back that's trying to record this, and I will try to limit it to 4 minutes. Anyone want to be first? Yes, please. I see a gentleman over here. Yeah. Oh, I should have said always a name and address. You probably know.
Stand up here, or?
I think stand up, but yeah.
I'm Chuck McCullough. I'm 42 Ashley Circle. And, have been working with the Abutters group. And I'd like to thank the developer, Joe Kelly, and, the builder, Greg Othyer, for taking the extra time to examine the project from the Abutters perspective. Through the Abutters meeting, the site visit, with our group and their subsequent work, there's been an effort to be mindful of the sight lines and the privacy between these new homes and the Abutters properties. And it's been done in a very commendable way. They have worked well with our group and a lot of progress has been made. The key items were moving the structures away from the Abutters boundaries and to provide some enhanced boundary buffer plantings, as well as some other plans regarding the buffer. Additionally, they've put together some initial plans for the means of Abutters to contact them during the project if the need arises. I wanted to let the planning board know that our group heard back from Mass Wildlife, and as John Furman, the engineer, had conveyed to us, they conveyed to us, the group, there's nothing of concern in the area of development, particularly owls that are endangered. There is ample wooded area maintained to meet the needs of the wildlife in the area. 5 pending items that are in various degrees of being reviewed right now from the Abutters perspective. Regarding the plans for the city water systems feeding this property, we believe the director of the DPW or the city engineer will be providing a letter verifying the existing plans that will not have an adverse impact on the level of water supply or the water pressure at Ashley Circle or Humphrey Lane. We assume a letter like this will be forwarded to the planning board or some form of communication. And the group of abutters respectfully asks that we receive a copy of that letter in some form. The Conservation Commission was contacted on a few occasions about this project, and our understanding is they have officially determined there is no jurisdiction. In good part, the conservative, and this is in good part to the conservative design of the development, maintaining a larger buffer zone from the river. There are two questions raised about the old farm dump site that is in the 200-foot zone and the eroding embankment, which we've talked about. We believe there has been a thorough review by the Conservation Commission and the conservation agent. We would then ask, again, similarly to what we just spoke about with the city engineer, that an official response by letter is to the planning board, and that we also respectfully request a copy of that letter be provided to our group in however form that comes. And then we believe there is one pending boundary issue. The developers engineers, Mr. Furman, provided a very good report in the last meeting showing their criteria, approach, researching and determining boundaries. We want to make sure that the abutter in question has guidance, possibly from the city, and a little bit of support to resolve any differences that exist from their perspective. I don't think that has an impact on the development, but as a result of this, that individual has some concerns that I think have to be taken up with the city. So we'd like to see that maybe a little bit of guidance provided to them in that regard. And purely for informational purposes, at some point, it would be helpful for the abutters to receive a report or update regarding the HOA being put in place, so that at some point down the road, if the abutters need to reach out to the group, there will be a general understanding of that organization. And then finally, we discussed with the builder and developer the guidelines provided to contractors at the start times, end times, instruction for traffic management, contractor parking, and laydown areas. And speaking with Mr. Othier, the builder, he's already talked with the group about this and is very practical and reasonable about these guidelines. It is our understanding that these guidelines would be part of any final conditions. We would just want to understand them. But as I said, we spoke with Mr. Othier and Mr. Kelly about that, and they're fully aware of what those guidelines are. So we don't, any of those guidelines that can be extended to the abutters, we'd appreciate that. And again, I'd like to thank Mr. Kelly, Mr. Othier, on behalf of the abutters, thank Mr. Kelly, Mr. Othier, and Mr. Furman for their collaborative approach in this process.
Thank you. Before we proceed, I'd just like to take a moment to commend Mr. McCullough for your excellent work, your direct and concise delivery and research and information and bringing it to the board. I think your neighbors are very lucky to have you. Absolutely. All right. Anyone else from the public that wishes to speak? Let's start looking online here. Anyone raising their hand online wishes to speak? I don't see anyone. Going once, going twice. Back to the room. Anyone want to speak? Nobody? Okay, go ahead.
I'm Jeff Egg, I'm the planning director. So I just wanted to provide the board with just a little bit of extra information. I think the way that Mr. McCullough explained it is very accurate, and we do expect the DPW to provide a letter, which I think in the last meeting they relayed verbally that they don't think this project will have an impact on the water supply for Ashley or Hunter, and I am expecting a letter, so I will work kind of diligently to get that for the board at the next meeting. I think the Conservation Commission letter is something that if the board wishes to have that, I think that's readily available. The conservation agent did relay the information to Mr. McCullough recently. The one thing I just wanted to add was that through this process, there was a complaint filed with the EPA about the dumping, and that the EPA forwarded it to the city, and the Conservation Commission reviewed the complaint and inspected the property and found that there's really no need to act based on the observations of the site in terms of the dumping. It's kind of a historic type of arrangement that the burden of proof is on the city. So if the city were interested in pursuing that, the city would have to provide all the detailed evidence of when it was anticipated to have occurred, who did it, and continue to pursue it. And the Conservation Commission has met twice to talk about it and determined that it could be more of an impact to the slope to pull anything out than it is to have it there. So I just wanted to, so that letter,
I'm gonna make the assumption that this is all also because it's non-hazardous materials or nothing that would require like a phase 2 or any soil sample, right? This is all just solid material that's been historically done, like.
yes, I think no one is going to, no, the indication I think that you'll get from the conservation agent is that no one's interested in pursuing the testing of it. It doesn't look like that.
All the regulators are backing up. Okay.
So there was that, and then the one thing I wanted to offer to the board is that, I think the one item that I would respond to, I think based on what the abutter said about the boundary dispute, is we will, if necessary, the planning department can put together a memo for the next meeting, but I think that the city would not be involved in what is like a boundary dispute. So I think with respect to the neighbor who has the concern, I think they would be advised to hire a land surveyor and review the information that was provided. It becomes a dispute between two land surveyors, and if there's no way to resolve that, it goes to Superior Court, and it's not a city related issue. And I think in the draft decision, when that's time, we would articulate that, based on the applicant's information, that even if the dispute turned out in favor of the abutter, the property has enough land area to meet the zoning requirements anyway. So I think that would be what would be in your purview. Is
And
if
your recommendation is that the abutters bring back to, or hopefully that property owner is listening, that they go to a land surveyor as step one.
correct, which I think that they already have, but I think that would be the continued pursuit. I don't think the city would become involved in that. And so we'll articulate for the planning board that it's really the land area. If that had to be subtracted, if that disputed area had to be subtracted from the project, it still meets the land area requirements for the project. So that would be the item that the planning board would be involved with. So I think with those fine details, that's kind of what I want to offer as the
There was
planning
a
director.
request for them to receive notification, I think. One was contact from the HOA, and maybe it was one before that. The
Copies of the letters from the
yeah.
DPW and the Conservation Commission. Yeah, I apologize. I think there was a little bit of overlap just in some of the communications last week that wouldn't get everybody all the information at the right time, but I think that.
Are those doable, or?
Yes, very much so. Yep. And then whenever the board wants to talk about conditions, I have a couple other things on conditions.
That's next on my list. Anyone else with questions? In the public? No? All right. In that case, then I do think we need to go through conditions. I'd like to start with a review that I have, and then Jeff, let you unleash.
I've got some too.
You have one? How about you start?
Keeping notes.
Yeah, you go.
These are just from my notes from all the meetings to date. It's only a couple of them. We did discuss at one point when it was time for conditions that we touch upon a no more tree clearing / a buffer maintenance. I think this is the line, they have 200-foot offset line. So basically preserving that treed, that natural area. And if we're going to set kind of a line in the sand permanently, that, no further development past this point. And kind of tying in with that, Jeff mentioned this before as well. And you see it all over the city, but basically a permanent marker, physical marker, that if we were to to delineate that line, or I think it's the 200-foot buffer as well. Right, Jeff?
Yeah.
Whatever line we're holding for that water offset, to put some physical markers in place out there. So they're.
Yeah, with the signs, you see them at the school.
At the school, it's the one that I
buffer.
see all the time, but something that just says wetland boundary or water boundary
Space
or
buffer, yeah.
tree.
So your condition would say physical markers shall be placed along a 200-foot buffer, and no future development will occur beyond the 200-foot buffer.
That would cover it. That's what I'm trying to, that's the sentiment there. And then
So
obviously
you can wordsmith that, Jeff.
the one that I mentioned that we discussed a few minutes ago, EPA, MADP construction general permit, or proof of non-requirement. If it's not required, just some statement or proof from the regulator saying, yeah, you're waived, you're exempt, or you don't, you clearly don't have the conditions in place that would warrant this permit, must be provided to, I don't know if it's us,
Planning
department.
But I need your little bit of help wordsmithing that, because it's starting to muddle in my head a little bit. How do we?
We could just say any construction general permit or proof of non-requirement must be provided to planning prior to construction.
Okay. Any thoughts about that, Jeff?
I think the board will see the language at the next meeting, so I think we have a handle on that, and perhaps the applicant can come to the next meeting with that proof, or it could be a condition. So I think either way, it's reasonable.
That's reasonable. Yeah, that
Right.
works. That works for me.
Stuff.
That's all I got.
Okay.
I digress.
I noted that we needed a condition of conservation of restriction. I also had a bond. There was a bond, stormwater bond, 136K. Yes, no, I don't remember any of these.
Well, and that's the engineer's condition as well. It's kind of predicated on that. So it's not that we need it. We have also a condition that must be met prior to removal of that.
Yeah. Be able to get those in?
Yes.
So you want to, we should just lump all that together in one condition.
Yeah, I'm okay with that. And, there was the future living, the 11th property. There was to be a condition that that's not a part of the permit. And that's what I had. Anyone have anything else? Then what do you have for us that we missed?
Ken, did you have
Oh,
anything?
sorry, I can't.
Any conditions, Ken? No? Okay.
So generally speaking, there's always a condition that the project is built substantially in accordance with the plans. And then there's an opportunity if something does change prior to construction, there's a condition that allows the applicant to come to the planning board for you to look at the degree of the change. So sometimes it's very minor, sometimes it's major. And there's a decision-making process that the board has already it's common for permits.
Yep.
But if it's a major change, it could send the applicant back to re-notify the abutters and have another public hearing. Or if it's minor, it's a decision of the board. So that would be kind of standard conditions.
Yep.
In this case, the HOA, I think, has a couple built-in criteria that we've talked about. So to what Member Hardman said, the maintenance of that buffer area should be noted in the HOA because they're going to be the care holders of that space in the future. The notification to abutters of some sort of notification of when the HOA gets formed. I think that was just noted tonight. I think stormwater maintenance gets carried by the HOA in the future. So having a note in there about that, the sewer pump maintenance, and then the warning cable. So those are all things that you've heard, I think would be good to have outlined in one more update of that HOA to come back to the board at the next meeting. And then we can have a condition
And the sewer lift.
in the sewer lift. Yep. The boundary markings we've talked about. So in the field, I think we would, using this meeting as some discussion, the applicants actually have another project on Loudville where the Conservation Commission required the similar requirement and the applicant chose the mechanism to do that. And so perhaps the applicant can come to the next meeting with what you would like to do for boundaries of the 200-foot riverfront and any wetlands, and then show the board that, and then there'll be a condition that they be installed. Because I think the applicant probably has an opportunity to show you what they want to do out there.
Yeah.
There's a lot of creativity.
Yeah.
Right, there's a lot of options. So I think if we can clarify what that might do. With conditions, we will work with the applicant to have maybe one more plan modification on the hydrants, or some way to identify that the hydrant will get relocated. The stormwater bond, the additional unit, and then the one about the conservation restriction was something I guess maybe would be great to have some quick dialogue.
Sure.
Asking the applicant, how were we going to respond to that? The preservation of that back area. Has there been a discussion of that or a plan, or is that something that we can get more information on at the next meeting?
I think the discussion that we've had today is that you had to do something similar to that at Stepper.
Yes.
And so you were thinking of reviewing that, seeing if they can get that to apply here, since there's been some sort of a history with that document.
Yeah. It's a conservation covenant of some sort, which is what we would like to kind of have in place similar to Stepper. So we can hopefully in the convening couple of weeks, have the applicant iron that out for the board and come back with that information, and then it would be a condition of the permit.
Perfect. And I mean, because my intent is to try and get as much as possible into the draft, I'd love it, you were all able to work that out. We'll need to pick the next meeting based on the time it will take to get all this done. Did you have anything else?
No, that's the list.
So let's talk about the time it'll take to get all the done. It's a big long list there that you were just given. Do you think February 6th is is viable as the next meeting time?
I think, well, from a plan perspective, there's really one or two things. There's really, the plans are set, other than these things here.
Hydrant.
Yeah, hydrant,
One
and
block.
then, adding in where the markers are gonna go and stuff. So the plans will be ready. I think the development, covenant, so that, yeah, I think we can go with that.
Okay. And again, Jeff, is there a date, before the 6th in which you'd want to try to receive as much information as you could so that you could have the opportunity to put it into the draft?
Yes, and that's where the timeline becomes even quicker. It'd be the Thursday prior would be the goal. So that would allow us to put the information online and have it available for people who are interested to review it. So that's really February 1st would be the target to receive as much revised information as possible. So that's what we'd be hoping for.
Still feel doable?
9 days.
Okay. And just to the public, to let you know at large, the intent is that the next meeting on February 6th, that information will be brought in. The planning department will come up with a draft proposal, and I'll read through that in its entirety. We'll likely close the public hearing at that point, and then take a vote in terms of process. Any questions from the board? In that case, I'll be looking to a motion to continue the 282 Loudville Road to February 6th.
I move to continue the public hearing for 282 Loudville Road to continue the hearing to February 6th at 6 p.m.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any against or abstentions? And it's unanimous. Thank you. All right. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen.
See you next time.
All right, we're about to begin another meeting. Just give us 1 second to pull Jesse back into the room, and I'll have to push him over there. Where you see
if I stay in this world.
Yeah,
Always.
always on one or the other side of me.
Yeah, I didn't know he was coming back. I was looking at that.
I didn't either. I didn't thought that.
I left all this here too. So I tentatively may not, be able to attend the meeting on the 6th in person, but I will still have one. I probably could attend in my hotel room, so I'll have to just let you know.
Jesse, that lamp
Seems large.
Yeah.
Yeah, I know. Well, and it's been so much.
So.
And make sure we can consider everything.
Stan, how are we sound? Can you hear us okay still?
I can hear you.
Fantastic.
Folks, we got another item, so we can just thank you so much. All right, moving right along to a public hearing for 10-12 Industrial Parkway LLC, seeking a special permit, site plan approval, and stormwater management plan for facility at 10-12 Industrial Parkway. Someone here to speak about what the plan is?
Yes, there's a few of us here.
Excellent.
Should I stand or just do this?
Whatever you'd like.
Very
Whatever
cozy
you
in
want.
here.
Yeah, you can stay seated if that's easier.
Okay. My name is Isaac Fleischer. I'm the legal counsel for the project. And I'm here with Brian and Frank Fournier, who are principals of the applicant, which is 1012 Industrial Parkway LLC. And then we also have David Dietz here, who was the prior owner of the property. So what we're applying for right now is site plan and special permit approval for open storage on the site and use as a transportation facility. So there's a pre-existing special permit there for open storage, but we're reapplying because the nature of the open storage is changing a bit. So the plan is to operate a towing company and a repo company. So it's Ernie's Towing, which are also owned by the same principal. So it's Ernie's Towing and Skyline Repo.
They will have offices in the existing building, and they'll use they'll be storing vehicles on site. They also plan possibly to lease 2 of the bays, is that correct? Lease 2 of the existing bays and some of the exterior storage for storage of vehicles of other businesses on site, but those businesses wouldn't have employees or offices on site. The use is going to include service and repair of the business's vehicles. They're not doing collision repair of any of the towed vehicles. They're going to have parking and storage of landscaping vehicles and landscaping equipment. That would be not these businesses, but one of their potential tenants. And additional material storage consistent with the proposed use. So the transportation facility is one of the designated uses on the table of uses for Easthampton. It seemed to be the best fit for what's proposed here. It's allowed in the industrial district, which is where this is located, pursuant to site plan approval. So we've submitted an existing conditions plan, which shows the site as is. It was previously merged with 2 abutting parcels through an A&R plan. Currently, there's no proposal to make any changes to the site other than an expansion of the existing grass swale. And that's why there's also a stormwater management permit application included here. And the reason for the expansion of the swale is because previously the additional land that was acquired through the A&R plan was graded and gravelled over for parking of vehicles, and the expanded swale is to absorb any additional runoff created by that.
Has that already started? I drove by today, it looks like, so, okay. And,
Yeah.
and are you guys using the property already too?
We're just storing some of our equipment there and just running some stuff there.
Okay.
We're not having customers or doing business.
Yeah, no, I just want to make sure that
Yeah,
we're waiting for the permits and approval before we start
Yeah,
doing
yeah,
anything.
absolutely.
Okay.
There's people there painting and doing stuff, fixing up the building and stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah, we're talking about, let's say like 6 to 8 employees. Both businesses have other locations. So this is essentially, an overflow location. We had mentioned other tenants using it for storage, but they wouldn't have employees. So other than the tow trucks coming and going and, the 6 to 8 employees, we're not expecting, much traffic coming, on and off of that site. Again, I'll open it up to questions at this point, because there's not really much else proposed in terms of site changes.
First?
I mean, it's the usual stuff, right? Snow plow, lighting, you talked a little bit about the hours of operation and 6 to 8 employees. I guess I should narrow in on something. What's the lighting of it?
So the existing lighting,
Yeah, so the existing lights was put in, it's all LED, lights that were put in, and they were approved, and the photometric plan was approved in, I think, 2014. When that was, since then, it's been upgraded to all LEDs, and they're now, yeah, they're all facing down correct in there. As the existing lights.
You said 6 to 8 employees and customers. About how many days?
oh no, there wouldn't be customers on site, correct?
The only time there would be a customer is when they have to retrieve a vehicle that we impounded or something like that to get their vehicle back, but that's no more than
So you anticipate a very low level of traffic.
not an huge increase at all.
Can you restate the hours?
For
You told me the hours of operation.
for the main usage. I mean, the towing company is open 24/7.
for main traffic going in and out because we have multiple facilities. We run most of our business out of the Amherst location, Northampton. So this is more or less a flow area for cars and also a bigger facility to maintenance on our own trucks.
But it could be 24/7.
What's that?
24/7.
We run a business that's 24/7, yes, but the main office hours are basically gonna be 7 to 5. But we do have people that'll be in the office and going in and out till probably 9, 10 o'clock at night.
Okay.
So, yeah.
Just quick on the lighting before we jump away. That was existing lighting. Are there plans to change the lighting at all?
There's plans, but not, there's no, construction plans. There's, the existing lighting is sufficient, the existing lighting is compliant with the zoning and planning requirements. But for security, they do intend to install freestanding lighting it's in the gravel parking area. Yeah, but,
So will we be able to get a plan for that?
yeah, I mean, that would be submitted, for a building permit when they're ready to install those. I just don't think they're at that stage yet. So that's why we don't have plans at this point, so it's not included in the application.
I mean, lighting is part of our consideration under the site plan. I mean, we can certainly.
Site plan approval without a site plan is always interesting.
Right.
Well, without changes to the site, that's why we have an existing conditions plan, because there's not, as part of this application, there's no changes proposed. If there were to be, lighting installed in the future, which, candidly, that's the plan. But when that happens, it would only be installed, in compliance with Easthampton's, dark skies.
Yeah, I mean, because there's building code, obviously, and then there's also site plan approval, so it's part of, the site plan approval is conditioned on the site plan.
Yeah.
At the very least,
being circular. So like it might be not as simple as a building permit, it might be modifying a site plan approval or something down the road if we got to that point. But
how do you determine that? What we're looking for today is approval of this use, with what's currently on site. If they wanted to install freestanding lighting within the gravel lot in the future, what would be the threshold that would push that into, because there's no change of use, how would that push it into the realm of site plan approval or site plan modification?
it would probably fall on the building inspector to make that determination. I don't know, Jeff, do you have any thoughts on that? Because we're approving the site plan and for what's on site, but it's all like specific to the conditions.
Yeah, and that's why we recognize that we're not getting approval right now to install lighting that we might want to install in the future.
Right.
That's why I think it might be, mentioned as a possibility in the narrative, but it's not included on the site plan because, inevitably whatever we put on the that site plan regarding lighting will probably be changed anyways.
Theoretically, all of the things that we're considering in the site plan are implicit conditions on continued operation. So a change of those, I think, would be a modification of it. But Jeff, do you have any thoughts?
I think traditionally the planning board has not given the review to the building inspector without seeing some kind of plan or information. So in some cases, the planning board has made a condition that prior to the issue for the building permit, there's a complete plan submitted and reviewed by the planning board at a meeting. That's one option that, and we talked about lighting. So I think lighting and the fencing is one of the sort of the issues that, we have kind of tried to say, like, we think is totally relevant to the board's site plan review approval. So I think it's important. We have noticed there have been a couple changes to the site, since like last May, that are called proposed, but are done. So we want to be real careful that the gravel area is significant. It's a significantly large gravel area. That's probably why you're pursuing the property. If you're talking about putting lights throughout that whole gravel area, the planning board would typically want to know how many light poles you'd be talking about, a location and wattage and a photometric plan. Pretty customary. I'm not familiar. We did look through the file from 2013 and it's a recollection at this point, but I didn't see a photometric plan. So I don't know, what was submitted or approved back then. And then we were looking at the existing conditions plan and there are some light poles that don't appear to be on the existing condition plan, but are observed like in the gravel parking area, like to the right of the building, looking at it. So just maybe lining up some of that information would be probably the important step for the planning board.
Yeah, because I don't even see, where is the gravel area? I don't even see a gravel, all I see is a enlarged detention basin.
Boy, I really hope we approve that stormwater plan. That's risky.
So
I'm really confused to what we're talking about.
Yeah, so the survey plan is gonna be, right before the plan showing the, detention basin or the swale.
So I see contours.
We pull one up.
Is this from the narrative?
It precedes the narrative. We have someone in the heritage, I think, that is,
Yeah,
you
it
can
was
draw
up,
that?
up a little bit. Wait, yeah, down, keep going. It's those, a couple of them are 17s.
Okay.
So yeah, the one on top, if you zoom in on that, that is a survey plan that Heritage put together. And that should be up to date. I mean, that's not that.
Yeah, I heard that. I just don't, so where's the gravel area that you're talking about? Is it the parking area that's in this?
It's
drawing
that,
above
it's
the building?
whole area that juts out going down on the orientation of this map.
That rectangle?
Yes.
Or, oh, wait, down where the.
I think the key, sorry if I may,
This
the
is not the
key,
existing
the key
site.
is
It's the
this is
deep
the
site.
current chain link fence that
Yeah.
runs along sort of that front perimeter, and then, I mean, everywhere in this view is.
It's all impervious.
It's all gravel.
It's
gravel
all, there's stockpiles and stuff.
Oh,
Needs
maybe,
all of that. This looks like a borrowed.
Present this, and
Thank you.
Yeah,
That's
it's
great.
similar to,
Okay. And is that all new? Is that what I'm understanding? That's all.
this is Dietz
Yeah,
construction
no,
and how they
so-
operate.
so
They-
back
It's
in-
a whole different land use.
But a lot of that.
It is a
wasn't
different
there.
land use.
A lot of that's new.
Yeah, so the improvements that you're looking on here, this is the only newer piece right in here. This all was approved in the 2013 special permit. There's 3 poles that are in here there was a photometric plan back in that original special permit that was on there and wall pack lighting like this. So those were approved. Modification is because this additional land that we bought from the Chilson's business in there is surface draining into the existing, swale. And then, so the modification was due to this land in here, but all of this has been already approved under special permits on the open storage.
And the other change would be the use, right?
Well, yeah, so what they're trying to do is they're modifying, they still want to keep that open storage, but then also, the approval for the transportation.
There hasn't been gravel added to that other part?
There was spilled, it was spilled. Yes, it was. Yeah.
So, yeah, I mean, I think lighting, fencing, that sort of stuff, if there's gonna be changes to that, we need to see what they are.
Well, yeah, because also my question is, if the Conservation Commission is seeing this, because this is a wet area, this whole area is so wet.
Well,
Adding
based on
in
the
all
new
of this.
industry too, you're gonna need a NIPD's permit from Mass DEP or EPA because salvage yards is,
It's not a salvage yard, no.
well, then it's also could be land transportation and warehousing, sector P or sector M. If, we probably need some proof that there's a determination from that agency that you don't need that permit, because otherwise you're discharging stormwater off-site for this land use, which does seem to fit sector P at a minimum, if not sector M as well. So the use of the site does matter too when it comes to stormwater, not just the contours, because certain industries need these NIPD's permits and some don't.
Right.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm just thinking about all the different projects that we have in this area that we've looked at, and all of them have stormwater issues because the ground is all clay and it's wet. And
Well,
so,
and this too requires quarterly sampling because of the nature of their industry. So it's not just that it's leaving the site, it's the quality of the water that's leaving the site with, the national standards that you have to follow. So
Mr. Chair.
No,
We've got a, Mark Reed with their hand raised. Are they with your party? Is this for
yeah,
public
that's
comment?
Let's listen to Mark. You might be able to help there. Thanks, Joel.
Yep, absolutely. Just a moment while I go ahead and promote
Here, I
them.
forgot about your hand either.
No, okay.
You're on the left side.
No, then take me up.
So you have to lower the hand, yep, and then you can promote it.
All right, Mark, you're now a co-host. You should be able to unmute yourself and turn on your camera if you'd like.
Sure. My name's Mark Reed from Heritage Land Surveying and Engineering. We did the survey work for this project. And I just wanted to point out, and I think David clarified where the new gravel area is on this particular plan. But that area is, if you're looking at the plan now on the screen, it's on the top of the page towards the rear of the property. So that area was the expanded gravel area that was more recently done.
Okay.
The existing site has a stormwater collection system that drains into water quality units that are on the property closer to Industrial Parkway before it discharges into the existing stormwater system in Industrial Parkway. So that the site itself met all the criteria when it was approved for under the stormwater permit at the time it was originally approved. So there may be some clarification needed relative to the new use of the property itself, but there are 3 different storm scepters that are located on the property. And they are after the water quality swales that are shown on the plan. So before any stormwater leaves the site, it goes through a treatment unit.
when was the last time that unit was vacked or maintained? Who vacks and maintains it, and how's that?
I was managing that, and it was recently done just before the sale of the building.
Sure.
And then we have records of how we were maintaining it, both cleaning the catch basins and the stormwater units.
Okay, that's good. That's good.
Western Mass Environmental, and
Yep, well, they were the
Those
ones
guys
that did.
out of West Springfield.
Yes.
They're good. Yep, good crew.
that's also who does all our stuff too.
Yep. Okay.
Yeah, and the catch basins that are located on the site all have deep sumps, 4-foot deep sumps, as well as then flowing into the storm water treatment units. So that's,
sorry, Mark, go ahead.
yeah. So I can answer any other questions. Generally, you know, the other plan is a more detailed plan showing the expanded stormwater swale. We took a look at drainage calculations, increased drainage calculations from that new area, and sized it accordingly.
Drainage calculations are, I think, at the very end of the benefit.
Yes, and I haven't heard any comments from the city engineer regarding those.
Have we had comments from the city engineer yet?
We transmitted the application to the city engineer, and I did ask him for an update, maybe last Thursday, and we haven't heard back. So before this hearing, so it would be important to hear from him to make sure that it concurs with kind of the information provided. We would expect to have that before the next planning board meeting. I actually did want to add one thing, and possibly the applicant or Mr. Dietz can add to this, but the newer area that had been changed is again on the top of the screen. There was, some initial concerns that it was within the 100-foot buffer. And the conservation agent did look at that, had communications with Mr. Dietz that there was a small area that encroached in the 100-foot buffer, and there was a process in front of I don't know, it's technically not an enforcement order. There's a process in front of the Conservation Commission to have them replant a small area. So that would be on the top right of the page.
Okay.
But otherwise the commission did observe that the rest of the work was outside of the 100-foot buffer. So in terms of stormwater, what that does is it takes the project out of the Conservation Commission's jurisdiction and puts the stormwater permit with the planning board. So we did have some, communications about that when that work was initially started, and I think there's a path forward for that to remediate that small area. And then the Conservation Commission is technically not involved in the process after that. And so the stormwater question that Mr. Hartman was referring to might be something that this board would want to follow up on in terms of the NIPDs.
No one else.
Yeah, and again, it's just a question of if it's required or not.
And the plantings that were done are shown in more detail on the enlarged plan. So that if you look at that, they're towards, as Jeff mentioned, to the rear of the site on the kind of the north east. And the plantings have been done and correct. So that's within on the right-hand top section of that plan.
And Mark, that was all the direction and approved by the conservation agent, sounds like?
Correct.
Okay.
Okay.
I'm gonna jump off from this if you guys have another question for right now.
I don't have.
Okay. What about the fencing? I know there's a preliminary fencing plan in here. Can we talk a little bit about what you guys are planning on doing?
I mean, yeah, you guys want to describe it? We've got a rough, we've got an approximate location for it. It's going to be chain link fencing. They had, as of I think today or yesterday, they got an equally rough outline from Four Seasons Property Maintenance. It's going to be installing the fencing. It's going to be it's 1,174 linear feet of chain link fence. But we don't have exact location on the plan because they're just not that far along with it yet.
If you look at the screen there, we're looking at the back. If you're looking at the property, the back left-hand corner, to kind of fence in that area in the back for just the car parking.
We're still talking about that highlighted area.
Yes, yeah, yep. But if you're from the street, you're looking back, it's a little far along. That portion.
Right, street is at the top of that.
Yeah, that's correct. And what we're proposing, the blue spots are gonna be 2 gates, 1 gate to the right. So what we're trying to do is the customers will be coming in on right where the offices are, then they can come down and grab their car from that gate and drive them out.
Mm-hmm.
The right side gate would be employees going in and out with trucks.
And just plain chain link, or are there any
Plain
green?
chain link.
Okay.
So I don't know if you've seen the site recently, but it's pretty well screened from the street because of that fence that runs along the edge of the parcel.
But so this isn't a final plan of where you want the fence yet?
This is what we're proposing. This is the area we wanted in, and the proposal we got from the landscaper, we went out, he measured everything and gave us the measurements of the area that want to be fenced in that area.
Okay, so at least on the fencing part, if we were to approve this is what you actually want to fence?
Yes.
And you're good with that part?
That is correct.
Okay.
Yes. And then when you guys were talking lights, basically what we were looking at was probably 8 to 10 lights, downward facing LED lights going through the area just to light that one area.
In the fenced in parcel?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, and that's it.
And nowhere outside of that?
No.
Okay.
With your new use, are those lights more high powered? I imagine that security is part of why the lights there, right?
We would want lights and security cameras on that lot. Just
And
for,
lights 24/7?
just at nighttime, yes.
Well, yeah, I mean, only when it's dark.
That was a test.
But that's basically what we're looking to do. We're not looking to do more fencing across the perimeter or the front facing. We'd rather leave the fencing not screened, so, the police department likes to drive by, look at the properties. That way they can see if anything's going on or whatever.
And can we get a lighting plan for the layout of that?
I just sent it out to a guy that we're waiting to hear back from, he was waiting for the measurements from the fencing company to get in, which we just received.
Okay.
So we will get you guys.
Okay, so we'll get that for the next, that would.
That is the plan, at least. So that's kind of what we're looking at. They're gonna figure out the measurements of that and see exactly what we need to do to light that area. Any of the lighting would be away, lighting away from the trees, so it wouldn't interfere with the wildlife or anything like that is what we're proposing. Kind of on the back side and then angling down the side.
And any proposed use for the other sections here that sort of, as we're looking at it, far left area, the big open space there?
A lot of that space is basically what we were talking about. If we got a landscape company come in using it for that special permit for the land, dumping of, soil, fill, whatever.
That's the outside storage, exterior storage.
Exterior storage piece of it. Kind of basically what David used the land for all that.
Okay, but sort of like landscaping materials, not what dumping always makes me nervous.
I'm sorry.
Yeah, okay, sort of building and landscaping materials, okay.
And in regards to his question earlier about fluids and stuff like that, any cars that we pick up that are accident related or whatever, most of these fluids are left out at the scene, then we have to clean up and stuff like that already. 90% of those are left there, and then if it is still leaking fluids from an accident, we bring them inside our shop, we leave them inside, we drain them all right there, anything that's leaking, if it's transmission fluid, we drain those. If it's coolant, we drain that, or oil. We do have a waste oil burner in that shop as well, and we burn any oils that are needed, and any coolant that's collected or any other mixed fluids, we use Western Mass Environmental to take that out. Okay. Before they go back out, we make sure everything is not leaking. We do that at all our locations.
Any other sort of deliveries or anything like that you guys get there? Any equipment, products?
The transporters will be picking up my cars. They just come in, load up, and they're gone. It's on normal tow trucks. And once in a while,
your cars. What does that mean?
The repossessed vehicles.
The repossessed vehicles.
Yeah.
Okay.
They come in, they stay for so long, and then they leave for auction. Transporters come pick them up.
Snow removal plan? Looked like you were doing pretty well with it today when I drove by, but I mean, there's a lot of space on there, I assume.
So snow removal in regards to how are we gonna
handle the lot and manage the snow on
Where
site?
on the map will it go?
We're still trying to get our handle on the property. Right now, we kind of put in a pile in the middle just because of the usage that we're using now. Next year, we would like to have a bigger piece of equipment to move that lot, so we're not out there for 12 hours plowing that lot. I mean, where would you guys like?
Not towards the buffer zone.
Not towards the woods.
Not towards the place you're planting and the wetlands and the area.
I mean, that's where our fence is gonna be, so we're not gonna be pushing all that snow that way anyway.
Yeah, so previously we had, snow stockpile areas shown, and I could show you, they're basically plowing it similar to what we did, but we were plowing it close to our open swales, stockpiling it and then let it melt naturally, and then it would go into the, stormwater swales and then go through the stormwater system. And I don't know if your intention is to plow the entire area. We did plow the entire area, because we were a plowing contractor also. And so it was kept in the stockpiles were kept in there. But there's no need to haul any snow away. There is a lot of area. And because of the designs for the sheet flow, we did large windrows of snow piles. Near those, they would melt down as the springtime came in, and the open swales were designed for that. The slopes on it was designed so they wouldn't create any erosion.
Sorry. Oh, Joe, I can wait for you. You're the board member. I'm just the staff.
Just the staff.
He called you.
Sorry, Jeff, proceed.
Just, two things if the board could ask the applicant about is I think there's been some discussion with the fire department if you can touch on that, and I think the Christopher Norris is chief of the fire department. I don't know if he wants to speak, but maybe the applicant can explain your conversation with the fire department. And then the other, just totally, after that, if you can just kind of discuss with the board the rental of the building space and just give an overview of how you would imagine that working and what kind of contractors you might rent that space to.
Yeah, let's do the fire department first. That's good.
If Chris wants to speak, he have him start and then we can fill in after that. You want to do it that way?
I think usually it'd be better if you wanted to explain what you've heard. Yeah.
He'll speak if he needs to.
In regard, electric vehicles?
Yeah.
Electric vehicles, what you're talking about?
Yeah.
Okay. So with electric vehicles, it's kind of a new territory for everybody. I'm storing on what to do with them after accidents, fires, blah, blah, blah. I was talking to one of the captains from Easthampton and they asked me about the property, how we're gonna be storing cars. And basically what the rule of thumb is now is they're trying to separate cars from other cars. So if a vehicle is involved in an accident, they want us to separate that from other vehicles and
Separate the electric vehicles from
Yes.
non-electric.
yes. So what people are doing now in our industry is they are using concrete like mafia blocks, 6x4s or whatever they are, to build a wall, and they separate them so that if for some reason they do end up catching fire, that they're contained.
Doesn't spread.
Exactly.
Is that really a term?
Yeah.
I've never heard that. That just seems violent.
That's what they used
Wow.
during COVID to make all the little.
No, I know what I can
If
picture
you
it.
know,
Is
they
there
were-
I'm not sure the other term.
I have no
That's all.
idea.
Jersey barriers?
Yeah.
No, they're not Jersey
are
barriers,
like,
but
Yeah,
they're,
they're the wider
I
ones.
know what they are.
Permit concrete plants, they call them.
They really do. Wow.
That's the technical term.
All right.
Yeah, pretty much.
Learn something new each day.
It's literally what
We
you
have
do with your waste concrete at the end of the day, so you don't waste it. You just have a mold and you make those blocks and set them aside and sell them on the side.
And you can fit a whole body in it. Is that what?
Yeah, no, you can tie the body to it.
All right, so the chief is on here. I mean,
And
if he's
so-
not raising his hand, I don't think we need to call him.
in regards to that, basically, they just want us to separate them.
Okay.
They're trying to do some training with us between Easthampton, Northampton's called us. Amherst, we do Amherst Hadley Police as well, and we work hand in hand with their fire departments. We donate cars to them to work, do Jaws of Life and all that stuff for their training as well. As far as electric vehicles, there's new policies and procedures, fire blankets that we're looking at purchasing to help contain that, any type of thing to start a fire. The other thing is that just came out at one of the conferences I was at is they have a 24-hour service for electric vehicles where they have specialists of electric vehicles. You take pictures of the vehicle at the scene and you email them out to the people. They have people on 24/7 and they tell you if it's a green light, you don't have to worry about that vehicle catching fire with the damage, or if it's a caution light where you want to separate that vehicle as well.
Okay.
So there's different things that are getting implemented. It's just, we're trying to get to that point. This is all new stuff that's coming out, and obviously electric vehicles are a new thing and everybody's getting it. So we're all kind of, the fire department, is still trying to get their heads wrapped around it as well, taking classes and stuff as well as we are.
Okay.
We attend, conferences all over the country, trying to better ourselves. What else can we do? And obviously this is a big investment for us and we want to make sure our property and our investments stay in as good a condition as we can have it. So.
Okay, so then the tenants, there was talk about renting out space. What are we thinking about for that as far as space and use?
So as of right now, we're gonna rent out the 2 last bays, so there's 5 total shop bays there. The last bay, was Saints Landscaping. That was renting it previously, and he's only got 1 employee that comes and goes with the owner. So that would be bay 5. Bay 4 would be CMB Trucking, which is a 1-man operation that would just park his truck inside, and that's basically it. He's
Okay.
Saints Landscaping, they're a landscape company. They do need a little bit of outdoor space as well, parking some skid steers, nothing that hasn't been there in the past.
Okay.
But besides that, for outdoor space, what we're looking to do is, there's some landscape companies that are looking to be able to park trailers, lawnmowers, just general equipment out in that open lot.
But so it's still just gonna be storage of vehicles and construction material. None of the
Yes.
tenants are gonna be doing work on site or
Correct.
anything like that.
No.
Okay.
They'll be putting vehicles there and, and storing stuff.
Right, parking it overnight or leaving a skid steer until the next project you need it on it. Okay.
Exactly.
All right.
These two businesses are the only ones that are gonna be operational.
Yep.
I would say.
Okay. Other questions?
Good. Any maintenance of the vehicles on site? You
In the-
maintain in your
in the
tow
garage
trucks, so you are
space,
doing
yes.
maintenance, and I'm assuming you
We do.
mentioned your oil burner, you would get your,
We have a waste oil burner that was in the facility when we purchased it from David.
so you've got your,
So we take our waste oil, we do the maintenance there, we take the oil out of our trucks, put it right in there and it burns it and heats our building.
right, so you're tracking that monthly, and you've got your your small quantity generator permit for
Yes,
that. And-
that is correct.
And same for probably your parts washer, that kind of stuff too.
What was the verification that you thought you needed at the beginning?
Oh, that it's, they're gonna need a NIPD's permit. It's for P1, Sector P and use code 4214 local trucking with storage. Since their water's leaving their property boundary and they're in this industry, they have to, it's not a hard permit to get. It's called an MSGP. I think it's like a 5-page application called an NOI. You submit to the state, they grant them, they don't deny them. It's just gonna make it so you have to meet quarterly requirements, just that your oils and greases and suspended solids are certain levels, verified by a lab. And then as long as that's okay, you're never bothered. That's just pretty standard for these types of industries. I work in some of them too, and I have to get these permits and maintain them. So
This is a DEP permit?
yeah, but DP for this particular stormwater, actually EPA provides the option for all 50 states to just defer to their regs. And I think it's only 4 do it: Mass, New Hampshire, and I forget the 2 out west off the top of my head. So technically you go up to region 1 in Boston of EPA, but DEP kind of directs you there. And so you can Google Massachusetts stormwater permit requirements, and their link will go to the EPA NIPD's permitting program, and you can verify everything I've just said now.
Okay, yeah, no, I thought that was only triggered, when you're within a buffer zone or,
It depends. If you're not in a regulated industry, then it doesn't matter. You can let water leave your site. If you're in a regulated industry, you have the other option to not allow water to actually leave your site. And that's why you see a lot of people in these industries with big berms and no catch basins, no floor drains, containment.
What industry is triggering it?
4214 local trucking with storage under Sector P, land transportation and warehousing.
Okay, so it is trucking that's triggering it.
Yep, trucking, local combined with storage, under 4214. And that's the, whatever they call them, the NASIX industry codes, I think off the top of my head.
But so we don't need to see that. We have our regular conditions. They need every other permit and condition and license that they need, right? So that one, it's helpful to tell them that, right? But that's a separate obligation.
I guess, yeah, we don't necessarily have to condition anything on that, but I will just say that if the state or feds come and you don't have that and you're doing that, it's not on.
So I think the fencing and lighting are the only things. So the two things the thing that Jeff had mentioned too, we could either come back next week with a plan, or we could condition it on before a building permit. We need to approve that, and we would just have a public meeting again about that.
Yeah, I mean, I think the other outstanding issue is the stormwater permit. We have not gotten the review by the city engineer. So I don't know if you were saying you were trying to potentially.
I forgot about that. I guess it probably doesn't make sense to try to do something tricky until we can hear from the city engineer.
My suggestion, and I know the applicant you guys have been very patient, but if the board continued to February 6th and you can dot the i's and cross the t's that we've discussed, I can go through the real quick list. I think on February 6th, the board seems to be signaling that you'd be eligible for the permit that night. And if we can reduce the number of conditions that, have to come again, it's going to be better. So I would
That way, if
suggest,
you have everything else done at the next meeting and you're just like, we don't have a lighting plan yet, or we don't have a firm fencing plan, at least you could head that way and just come back with one thing at some point if you wanted to get a building permit.
sure. And I think the best case scenario would be that you, Brian, I think you did a good job of describing that is really your fence plan. If you just confirm that. So I would suggest that, with your help, Isaac, you come back with a cover letter, just outlining the things that you heard tonight and how you're gonna respond. I think if you can come back with the fence plan and some kind of, a little bit more information about the lighting that
The
you're
lighting might be
anticipating.
the delay
Okay,
on that, so we might have to come back for a lighting permit
Okay.
if that's what we would need from you. I mean, I already sent it out. I'm just waiting on hearing back from them.
okay.
All right,
Yeah.
we can cross that bridge. If it's not back in 2 weeks, we'll figure out
Correct.
the easiest way to deal with that. Dylan, are there people in the room, if there's anybody from the public with comments or questions?
Great, and then.
Can we see everybody or are there like?
Oh, yeah, that's
Okay. I
everybody.
don't have 40 people that are hiding.
So if I could, can I recap? Good. So I think,
Yeah,
because if I'm understanding the board, that doesn't seem to be issues with the use and the combined uses.
No.
So it's the details. If we can clarify the stormwater permit is meeting the same, like the expectations of the city engineer, that'd
Yeah.
be really important. I think if the cover letter can acknowledge your willingness to separate EVs or work with the fire department, I think that's gonna be really helpful. The clarification of the MSGP permit, like if you wanna look at that and confirm that that's something you can seek, I think just coming back with that information at the next meeting will be really informative, and I think the planning department can come with a draft decision.
Yeah.
And an outline of the condition.
Confirming the fence plan.
Yeah.
Both the area and the height and makeup, and then also if we can get a lighting plan that shows where and what will be illuminated, that would be.
So not the official lighting plan, but just sort of like an outline.
I mean, I think we can condition it that it doesn't leave the site, like that part.
Yeah, we can condition that it doesn't leave the site, but yeah, just a
I'd like to know
example,
where
like,
the towers are gonna go and.
what kind of lighting.
That's what they understand their expertise, like if they know what a lighting plan kind of looks like. Please. Are you guys familiar with typically a lighting plan in these applications? Okay, do we have a good example that we can we email them something?
Yeah, I mean,
One of the,
I can.
I just want to make sure, because it's, prior to being on this board, I had never seen one personally. So I think half the applicants maybe are in the same boat, is like, what is a lighting plan? And there, it is somewhat specific and quantified what we need to see. So can we give them an example?
Yeah, and I think David Dees mentioned that there, I believe that there probably was another photometric plan prepared in the 2013 timeframe. I haven't seen it, but.
Just trying to expedite things. So.
Can I clarify? Because, I can show them a photometric plan. I'm familiar with photometric plans, but a lighting plan sometimes means something different. It sometimes means details of the actual lighting fixtures. So we're looking you want to see where the lights would be located and a photometric plan that's going to show the lighting levels.
The lumens and how it relates to the property lines. And some applicants do provide us with a kind of a small inset or a cut sheet of the make and model.
I'd appreciate a cut sheet, make sure it's,
I don't know how you do the photometric part unless the calculations being done with specific fixtures anyway. So my guess is that information is included, but I think that's the big thing that we don't have that I think, other than the stormwater from the city engineer, that'd be really helpful.
And regarding the stormwater, there's nothing you need on our end. We're just waiting for
the city. Yes, the city engineer says about it. I think it looks like he should be.
And as for fencing, is the highlighted area that's shown on the current site plan, is that going to be sufficient? I mean, we have, what we received today that I can send you is, it's a paper that shows the dimensions of the fence. But, in fact, I'll show you what it looks like, because I want to know
if this preliminary fence plan was highlighted.
So it's a little more specific in that it has measurements, but.
And that's the only proposed fencing?
Yeah, so
Now we're at it.
Like, this almost is enough. I don't like that it says preliminary, like I don't want it to be like this. That's the worst part for me, and it's not highlighted on my version here, but that, and if you are giving us you know, I mean, even if you want to write these numbers in or something like that, like that's
Yeah,
fine.
we can do
Okay. And then the only other thing that's missing from here is that it is your proposed fence plan
Yeah, not preliminary.
and whatever the height, would we just say?
The height is on.
Oh, yeah, okay.
Yeah, the
All right,
material
yeah.
as well.
So, I mean, I think that,
Non-gauge,
that should be fine,
yeah.
really just so, because I mean, our decision, you know, incorporates all the plans that are put in here, and so when you have something that says preliminary, then it makes wiggle room that we don't.
Understood. Okay, great. Yeah, I mean, we can add this information that's on this piece of paper, we can add it onto,
Yeah,
the site plan. I mean, this has the dimensions, it has,
I think the fact that those numbers may not be exactly to scale of what we have here is fine.
Okay.
Like if you write them in so we know this is the size, what this shape is gonna be.
Yeah.
Then we know what we're approving. Okay, awesome. Any other questions from board members? Here, you had one, someone answered it. Planning department, comments, questions? No. All right, and there's nobody else in the public. Ken, you good back there? All right,
A motion to continue the 10 Industrial Drive, Parkway, Easthampton, Mass. Site plan approval to February 6th at 6:30.
great.
Second.
All right, going to continue to February 6th. All those in favor? Aye. Ken, aye, all right.
Can I make a mention here?
Yes,
We say 6:30, just that's how we set things up. We do have another thing, the same thing, in fact, that was here before you.
We're gonna run it on the back.
And so that could go on, so I just don't want to catch you off.
It likely will
guard
go
with
on way before, after.
so yours can't start till 6:30.
that. Exactly.
So you do not need to show up for 6, you can show up for 6. I mean, I will probably do what I did tonight and I'll just be hiding in the back office till someone gets me to, but yeah, we can't start till 6:30, so you at least got a half hour leeway there.
In that meeting, I don't expect a huge amount of discourse and go on so long, but,
Why would you say that?
well, you never know what's gonna
You should get that.
But I will say this, we have to read, as we'll do, as Jesse has the great misfortune of having to do most often. We have to read the decisions, the findings and the conditions, and just that alone can take a while. So heads up.
Yeah.
All right, I will take a motion to adjourn.
Motion to adjourn.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
All right.
This government meeting is brought to you by Eastworks and our local cable subscribers.